In my part of the presentation, I will offer a critique of communitarianism. First, by discussing the difficulty of finding a political theorist willing to be labeled communitarian, and the ambiguity of the concept of community and the issue of power relations. So who are the communitarianists? Michael Sandel, Charles Taylor, Alistair MacIntyre, and Michael Walzer have been placed as communitarianists, but not necessarily self-described as such, and may not appreciate being so labeled. But there is a common theme of their position, a distinctive anti-individualism and a promotion of a distinctive set of values. They value community, itself, and tradition. One of the interesting points of division or contention amongst these labeled as communitarianists is the extent to which they embrace liberalism. While some, such as Charles Taylor, would endorse liberalism in some forms, others like Sandel would not. Taylor defends a version of liberal government that nurtures a particular culture, yet also protects the basic rights and welfare of non-conforming citizens. So there doesn't seem to be a coherent communitarianist agenda or ideological platform. Indeed, those who have been labeled communitarianist may not wish it so. Are things getting a little fuzzy? All right, but one main thing that all communitarianists seem to agree on is the value of community. But what is community? So there are really three types of communities: geographical communities, sociological communities, and ideological communities. Geographical communities are political or geographical entities or groups of people living in the same place. It could be a rural community, a community of nuns, a prison community, a body of nations or states unified by common interests such as the European community, or groups within nations such as Montreal's Italian community. Sociological communities are tied by shared values, practices, commitments, and attitudes and interests in common. It could have the religious community, the LGBTQ community, or the university community, school community, or the retirement community. We have the ideological community, which is a community of people with similar ideologies or ethical identities, such as the scientific community. We have a wonderful political community, the community of avid doctoral students at the University of Calgary, and our community of communitarians. Communitarians usually use the geographic community in their literature as a smallish, homogeneous society with similar values, practices, and commitments. Very few geographic communities have these elements. Rather, communities are composed of all kinds of people. Communitarian literature muddles the concept of community, and different types of community tend not to be distinguished. So who will make the decisions about what the values of the community are? The white male privileged? The communitarians? Who holds the power? According to Arthur, it's the majority. But who is the majority? An example of communitarianism is the community of Bountiful, which had come under scrutiny as a polygamous sect of the Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. This community holds the same values and beliefs because the children born into this community have been socialized that way since birth, in their homes and in their schools. This might be an extreme example of communitarianism, but it demonstrates the issue of power relations. Education is very powerful, and the issues of power are enacted in the classrooms. Who decides the textbooks, the curriculum, the funding? Who has the power to say what children should learn and what is normal for our society? James will demonstrate this point later in his part of the presentation as well. According to Arthur, National Forum for Values in Education and the Community, which was established by the School Curriculum and Assessment Authority in 1996, used consensus of the majority to an agreed upon set of values. The only authority claimed for these values was the authority of consensus. Now, Arthur admits there are some problems with this. that people will have a different interpretation and application of these values. Each school community will have to decide how to interpret them. He states the difficulty of integrating these values into the practices within education, but he does not address these difficulties in his paper. Since communitarianism, ironically enough, doesn't seem to have a consensus of their theory or ideology, it is a little difficult to get a comprehensive theory of education from a communitarian perspective. But let's look at where James Arthur is today. He is the Professor of Education and Civic Engagement in the School of Education, University of Birmingham. He was a member of the National Forum for Values in Education in the Community. He is currently the Director of the Jubilee Center for Character and Values, Director of CITICED, an organization in higher education promoting citizenship, and is the Director of a major research project on young people's values and character dispositions called Learning for Life. Learning for Life will build and strengthen character development in schools. Character is about who we are and who we'll become, and includes the virtues of responsibility, honesty, self-reliance, reliability, generosity, self-discipline, and a sense of identity and purpose. Do you think character development has its place in schools? These and more questions will be discussed on the evening of December 3rd. John, James, and I look forward to the discussion. See you then.